born into a family held in bondage in Tidewater, Maryland in or around the year 1821. A tiny brown baby girl named Araminda didn't seem like one to shake up the world. The enslaved people on the farm me Minda or Mindy when I was a baby, but in the peculiar institution called slavery, childhood didn't last long for me. It was at the tender age of 5, when I was rented out to a white woman nearby for domestic work. On the first day, before breakfast, as a child I was lashed with a leather strap 4 times across my face. By the time I was 7 years old I ran away, tired of my treatment. I was so tired, and so afraid of being caught that I fell into a pig pen, and competed with pigs for scraps of food. When I returned to the house where I worked, some 4 days later, I was beaten, whipped by a man and later returned to my home farm. I was called Harriet, no longer a house slave, but a field slave. As a young woman, I made my way out of the house of bondage, and, not content with my own freedom, I resolved to return to the plantations to lead others out of bondage. I was so successful that I became a living legend to the enslaved, and a thorn in the side of the enslavers. The plantation owners put out a bounty totaling $40,000 for my capture, dead or alive. In the hovels of the enslaved, a whisper of my name Moses or the humming of a spiritual told of my presence and my mission, freedom. I brought over 300 souls north, and helped build a deep network of informants throughout slave territory. I so incensed the slavers that they pushed through the Federal Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. A federal law signed by President Millard Fillmore of Buffalo, New York, which deputized all whites in the pursuit or capture of a former or escaped slaves, anywhere in the United States. For me, that meant slavery reached up to the Canadian border through Niagara Falls. So I started taking people up there in Canada for a taste of freedom. I took my job dead serious. When a captive, tired, scared, or hungry and wanted to turn back to the life of bondage they knew, they would find themselves staring at a pistol in my hand and an offer they couldn't refuse. Go on with us, or die. There was no turning back. When Civil War broke out, I left my home in West Canada, and came back down to do whatever I could against the slave. With deep contacts in slave country, I gave important intelligence data to the Union Army, and I personally led several raids against Confederate targets. One of the most famous was the Combahee River Raid, in June 1863. My contacts on the plantations on the South Carolina coast reported the placement of floating mines in the Combahee to block the Union Navy. Under my guidance, the mines were removed, railroads and bridges were destroyed, and the Slaveocracy's most precious resource captives were liberated from the very heart of the Confederacy. In fact, over 800 of the enslaved were given passage aboard Union ships. I was a soldier for freedom, and my words, fueled by a courageous heart, have echoed down the centuries. I had seen their tears and sighs, and I heard their groans, and I would give every drop of blood in my veins to free them. To encourage them that are enslaved to find purpose and inner strength to overcome those things that have bound your minds to the things that are seen, instead of asking for God's guidance and spirit to walk before those things that are unseen. Faith.